The presidential campaign of Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis seems to be all but announced at this point. He spent time over the weekend with Republican donors and lawmakers at an event organized by his Political Action Committee just a few miles down the road from Donald Trump's retirement home. Today, he released what looks very much like a campaign video pushing the, quote, Florida blueprint. And tomorrow, DeSantis launches a tour for his new book titled The Courage to Be Free, which lays out his potential presidential platform. Well, to help us understand it all, Jennifer Rubin is an opinion columnist for The Washington Post, and Mona Sharon is policy editor for The Bulwark and host of the Beg to Differ podcast. Both join me here in Washington on set. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
You ready to dive in? Okay,
yes.
let's do this. So Mona, DeSantis is running a very MAGA kind of, or MAGA style campaign or effort so far. How, if he continues down this road, how does he begin to pivot back to an audience that's bigger than Florida?
Right. So he has to think about two campaigns, the first one for the nomination and the second one for the general election. And those two things are obviously in conflict because the Republican primary electorate has become so crazed and so desirous of red meat. And what we haven't seen from DeSantis is any flexibility, any willingness to create even the tiniest space between him and the base. You know, even to give himself some room and comfort and say, of course, I'm with you on, for example, the COVID restrictions, or I'm with you on the anti-woke legislation, which is unconstitutional, but never mind. But you know, for example, we have to be all in on Ukraine. If he had done something like that, he would have shown something that we have not seen, which is a little bit of leadership in his soul. Instead, we're seeing followership.
And it's an interesting point that you raise because it does seem to play out a little bit in the numbers in terms of not creating enough difference to really rise above. Jennifer DeSantis is, for example, polling behind Trump, 28 to 43 in a new Fox poll, but far ahead of the next four potential contenders combined. So how seriously should we look at these numbers at this point? I think, you know, to the idea that is he making any space, giving himself any space to beat Trump, or is he going to be in that shadow?
Well, to echo what Mona said, it's so bad that we've seen more courage from Mike Pence, who actually differentiated himself on Ukraine and took a very proactive, very aggressive stance. So we not only haven't seen him try to pivot away from Trump, we haven't seen him lay out anything that looks like a national agenda beyond this anti-wokeness, beyond the race baiting, beyond the attack on schools, beyond the attack on LGBTQ students. So it's not quite apparent whether he sees a need to or he thinks he can get through an entire primary just on this very kind of narrow, one-note kind of message. But he does have another problem, which is Trump has this core Trump people. So if he were adept, if he were flexible, he would take some of those people. But there's also a group of people that 55% of Republicans don't really want Trump anymore. They're looking for a lifeline. And to get those, I think he's going to have to show a little bit of independence, show that he offers something in the way of either policy or some other idea. And the other thing is he's never really been on a national stage. And he is not, shall I say, the most charismatic, the most electric
doesn't exude
speaker.
The warm and fuzzies. No.
Yes. He is kind of a staid, you know, kind of close to your vest guy. So we're going to have to see if he's more like Jeb Bush than Donald Trump, who really did bomb on the national campaign trail.
Well, I think that's an interesting point as well. And it sort of goes to the point, Mona, that, you know, you have Trump right now in a position where he really is kind of surveying the landscape and saying, I got this. But needless to say, he's still reacting to those polls and claiming, for example, in this latest poll, Fox is promoting DeSantis, quote, it's so hard and so much. And he is, I can't even do it right? And he's already been targeting DeSantis as much as he possibly can, reportedly dubbing him Meatball Ron.
Yeah, that's really not very clever, not his best nickname.
I think it was better with the Sanctimonious, but what's your take on how he's responding and reacting so far?
Well, look, Trump is, he's lost a step, right? I mean, the only thing that he has done since his announcement, really, that showed any glimmer of the old Trump was going to Palestine, Ohio, and positioning himself there. Right. I care about white people who are hurt, and, you know, Biden is over in Ukraine. So that was the only thing. But other than that, he does feel like he's sort of stutter-stepping into this campaign, not the same command. On the other hand, in response to Jen's point about, DeSantis not being very entertaining, not being very charismatic, that's all true. And yet, I think there is so much hunger for a non-Trump Republican that people are going to be willing to overlook a lot. And, they may just say, yeah, right, he's not charming, he's not funny. This isn't fun to be a DeSantis person, except for the real haters who will like him. Right. But they may be willing to swallow a lot just to get past Trump.
Well, I think folks need to be careful about that, because the other side of Trump, and if you just take a look at Florida, it's not that pretty, particularly when you consider the sort of anti-woke approach that he's bringing to governing. So, Jennifer Rubin and Mona Sharon, thank you guys very much. Appreciate you.
Pleasure.
Up next, more bad news for America's favorite liar, the latest investigation into Republican Congressman George Santos, when we come back.